Boss refuses to sit with employee. What happens next will shock you. Some moments stay with you forever. Not because they were loud or dramatic, but because of how small and quiet they were, how they made you feel something you couldn't shake off. This was one of those moments. It was a regular workday just like any other. The morning had been filled with meetings, emails, and back-to-back deadlines. By the time lunch rolled around, I was drained. I needed a break, just a moment to sit, eat, and breathe before diving back into the never-ending to-do list. I grabbed my tray from the cafeteria and walked into the company break room. It was packed, as usual. People gathered in their usual groups, some laughing, some deep in conversation, others quietly scrolling through their phones. I scanned the room, looking for an open seat. Most of the tables were full, but then I spotted one at the far end. It wasn't completely empty. My boss, Mr. Reynolds, was sitting there alone. I hesitated for a second. Mr. Reynolds wasn't the type to go out of his way to be friendly, but he wasn't rude either, just distant, banal. But still, he was my boss, and sharing a table wasn't a big deal, right? I walked over, tray in hand, and smiled politely. "Hey, mind if I sit here?" He barely looked up from his phone. His fingers kept scrolling as if I wasn't even there. Then, without looking at me, he said, "Actually, I was waiting for someone." His voice was flat, emotionless. I glanced at the empty chair across from him. There was no second plate, no drink waiting for another person, nothing to suggest that anyone was coming. I felt a strange tightness in my chest, but I forced a smile and nodded. "Oh, no problem." I turned and walked away, but the moment played over in my head on repeat. It wasn't what he said, it was how he said it. It was the way he barely acknowledged me, the way he dismissed me so casually, like I didn't belong there. I found another table, this time by myself. I poked at my food, but suddenly I wasn't hungry anymore. For months, I had ignored little things in the office. The way conversations would quiet down when I walked in. The way my ideas were brushed off in meetings until someone else repeated them. The way inside jokes were shared around me but never with me. I had told myself I was imagining it, that I was overthinking, that maybe I just needed to try harder to fit in, But at that moment, it hit me. I was the only Black employee in my department. And I wasn't imagining anything. The truth settled into my stomach like a heavy stone. I had always believed that if I worked hard, stayed professional, and did my best, I'd be treated just like everyone else. But this small, subtle rejection was a reminder that no matter how hard I tried, some people would always see me as different. It was painful. Not because I wanted to sit with Mr. Reynolds, but because I realized he had made a choice. He had decided, in that moment, that I wasn't worth sharing a table with. I told myself to shake it off. It was just a chair. Just lunch. It didn't matter. But it did. It mattered, because it wasn't just about this one moment. It was about all the moments before it. The small, quiet ways that let you know you're not really part of the group. The ways that remind you that no matter how much you try to blend in, you'll always be seen as different. I sat there, pushing my food around my plate, trying to swallow the lump in my throat. Then something unexpected happened. I felt a shadow over my table. I looked up and saw Lisa, one of my coworkers, standing there with her tray. "Mind if I sit here?" she asked, her voice light and friendly. I blinked, caught off guard. Yeah. Sure, she sat down without hesitation and started eating like it was the most normal thing in the world. A few minutes later, James from accounting walked by. "This seat taken?" he asked. I shook my head. "Go for it." Then Mia joined us. And before I knew it, I wasn't sitting alone anymore. I don't know if they had seen what happened with Mr. Reynolds. Maybe they had. Maybe they hadn't. Maybe they just noticed that I was sitting alone and decided I shouldn't be. Either way, it meant something. It reminded me that even in spaces where you feel unseen, there are people who notice. People who choose to stand or sit with you. And in that moment, I realized something important. I didn't need Mr. Reynolds' approval. I didn't need his seat at his table because there will always be people who see you, who value you, who choose to sit with you, not because they have to, but because they want to. And those are the people who truly matter. I finished my lunch that day, surrounded by people who saw me. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I belonged. And that was more powerful than any seat at any table. Hey everyone, if this story moved you, if it made you think, or if it reminded you why we need to keep having these conversations, please take a moment to like this video. It really helps spread awareness. I'd love to hear your thoughts, so drop a comment below. Have you ever witnessed or experienced something like this? Let's talk about it. And if you believe stories like this deserve to be told, make sure to subscribe to the channel. We're here to share real, powerful stories that need to be heard. Lastly, share this with your friends and family. The more people who see this, the more we can bring awareness and change. Thank you for watching and being part of this journey. Let's keep pushing forward, together.